Muskie took the train to Ueno Station, passing the ticket gate into the plaza. Though as crowded as ever, there was one spot that remained totally devoid of people. This was as expected. While that made it an ideal rendezvous point, it didn't change the fact the stall was surrounded by an impressive aura, as if it were run by the devil himself. Quit hating on my boy Takoyaki man like that, you jackasses. Muskie looked away from the old man and waited for his contact to show. Suddenly the old man forced Muskie to acknowledge him anyway. Muskie answered only reluctantly, terrified of what horrible fate would befall him if he kept ignoring the vendor. The area certainly felt like a hungry lion's turf, that was for sure. No wonder hardly anyone dared to approach it. That said, Muskie didn't see the point in maintaining a turf that scared off not just competitors, but even customers. Downright business suicide. What, vegan takoyaki? Is that what that is? I see it's got like plants sprouting from it. Muskie glanced at the flyer on the stall. It read Festival of 7 Herbs Yaki. Ah, good old 7 herb takoyaki. The old man poured batter onto his grill, not even waiting for Muskie's answer. Hell yeah. Said concoction was green. Well, there are 7 herbs. You really put 7 herbs in it? Well, I mean, it is 7 herbs yaki. What would you expect? Muskie was intrigued, but he felt like it'd be a sign of weakness to actually show interest in the flavor. The old man filled a container with 3 takoyaki once he finished cooking. They were steaming and didn't actually look too bad, though they did smell like a little like a jungle. No shit. I suppose they're safe then, I hope. Muskie popped one of them into his mouth with that thought in mind. Though the smell stung his nostrils and it was a bit too hot, the radishes and turnips that replaced the typical octopus were actually cooked to perfection. He really meant that too. Though it wouldn't be winning any Best Takoyaki of All Time awards, it was still perfectly edible. And yet, there was a striking lack of customers to back up that claim. The old man poured some more of his special batter onto the grill. He honestly wasn't that crazy about them. The old man looked up at Muskie. Muskie frantically shook his head when the old man cast him a soul-piercing stare. The only thing refusing would have garnered him was a fate worse than death. Of that, Muskie was certain. The batter sizzled as it cooked on the grill. The man started humming. Before long, Muskie found himself presented with another helping of the special takoyaki. Muskie took out his wallet, his guilt refusing to let him accept more food for free. Muskie began to regret ever saying that. Fortunately, it wasn't long after Toji arrived, preventing Muskie from digging his grave any deeper. I was just kidding. Toji departed with Muskie and Tao. Muskie took a seat and set down the takoyaki he'd bought. Toji picked up some papers and sat down.
孤児院か何かを運営していたという資料はありませんか？
孤児院、これかな。昭和4年か5年、その頃に白百合の園という孤児院を設立したという記録が残っている。だいたい典型の会が創立した頃と時期は同じだな。当時の園長は角原若葉という女性だ。
そんな前からあったんですか？
うさんくさい宗教団体であっても孤児を養うというと大義名分が立つからな。
何ですか？
これは裏の組織ではよくあることだが、身寄りのない子供を集めて教育することで組織に従順な兵隊を効率よく生産できるんだよ。
まさか。
そういう団体なのだから強化はそう難しくもないだろう。でだ、 この白百合の園副園長に宇津木圭吾が。
宇津木というと。
そうだ、経営手腕に優れた男で、こいつが孤児院の運営に関わるようになってから。
白百合の園で何らかの金儲けをしていたということですか？
そこまではわからん。孤児院で金儲けをする方法があまり思いつかないからな。
So did you leave the papers?
初代の教主が死に、千里教となってからも引き続き白百合の園は教団の管理下に置かれていた。最も主流からは外れていて、ほとんど見向きもされなかったようだ。そこで資金を稼いでいたのも知らされていなかったのではないかな。
ではそのままその2人が運営していたんですね。その園長だった篠原さんに話は聞けないんですか？
それは無理だな。
まだ信者だからですか？
いや、昭和27年に篠原若葉は自殺している。
自殺？昭和27年であれば。
原因は別のところだ。この年、白百合の園で孤児の集団自殺があったそうだ。
集団自殺ですか？
度重なる虐待に抗議してと当時の資料には残されているな。そして白百合の園は一旦閉鎖された。しかし典型会となった教団は信者の生活を守るために今度は保育施設を作る。それが小金井にある若葉園だ。こちらに典型会は出身のみであまり関わっていないようだな。一般の学童も入所しており。
では職員などはどう？
警察にある信者の名簿と照らし合わせて名前があるのは確認してある。
茅原冬美さんも信者なんですか？
どうしてその名前を？まあいい。名簿に名前は記載されていた。若葉園の実質的な責任者。内部では信頼されているんじゃないか。
Don't tell me Huyumi's one of the bad guys. Such a small world.
典型会の孤児院に関することで分かっているのは。
Oh, just take the papers and put them away.
ありがとうございます。
あと時坂に伝えておいてくれ。
羊？
Muskie cocked his head.
それだけ言えば。
Unlike those, you plan to share no more with Muskie.
そうですか。
Thus, Muskie was left to assume Reiji was probably just working on some other case he wasn't aware of.
では自分はこれで失礼します。
Yukari went to the art room after she was done with school for the day. It was her first time visiting since the start of the new semester. Yukiko was already lounging there, staring off into space.
茅原さん？え？
Yukiko looked toward Yukari, her cheeks faintly flushed.
どうしたの？なんでもないわ。
Yukiko awkwardly looked away and produced her art supplies.
昨日病院へ行っていかがでしたか
Yukari knew she should be minding her own business, but asked anyway.
お薬ももらったし。そうですか。
She said that, but the way Yukiko had been staring out into space made Yukari worry she was putting on a brave face.
あまり無理はなさらないでくださいね。
Yukiko nodded and turned to her canvas. Yukari readied her own oil painting tools when she saw that. Yukari gasped when she saw the painting knife in her bag.
ごめんなさい。茅原。年末に借りていたナイフがそのままで。
The blade was slightly hardened with paint, even though Yukari had wiped it clean after she'd used it.
大丈夫。すみません。今洗ってお返ししますね。
Yukari steeped the knife in kerosene meant for cleaning, then wiped it dry. Red streaks stained the cloth. Seeing that reminded Yukari of the incident from early last month. Painting knives were blunt. As such, they couldn't actually cut anyone, but still made her shudder nonetheless.
はい。ありがとうございました。
Yukari handed the clean knife back to Yukiko.
時坂さん。そうね。
She checked her friend's canvas. Yukiko was still working on the sketching her rough draft. In other words, she wasn't at any stage to be using paint yet.
こちらに来ていただいてもよろしいですか
Thus, Yukari decided to use her own canvas as a guinea pig.
油絵でナイフを使うのは絵の具を混ぜたり大きな面を塗りつぶしたりするのに使うのですが
You could have used the round tip of the palette knife to scoop some paint that had been dissolved in oil, then smeared it against the edge of the canvas.
こうして絵の具を広げるんです。私もまだうまく使えないのですが。
Yukio nodded over and over in fascination.
何度もやってみて覚えるしかないと思いますよ。そうみたいね。
Yukio put her painting knife back in the bag.
今はまだデッサンを続けてみる。ええ。
Masaki took a little walk from Musashi Koganai Station to the New Leaf Garden. This was his first time here. Thus, he started out by taking stock of the area. Where I could tell, the kids were likely inside, probably because it was such a cold day. Unfortunately, the windows were fogged over from the sheer contrast in temperatures, making them as good as useless. Masaki was about to peek through them. Then he realized that would make him look like a creep. So he decided to pay a visit in person.
あら、そうそう、まさきさん。
The Gigolo's Gigolo, that's right.
突然すみません。
He and Huyumi exchanged greetings.
どうかしましたか？こんなところまでおいでになるなんて。
ちょっとお尋ねしたいことがありまして。
探偵のお仕事？
まあ、そうなりますけど。
Masaki chose to be upfront about his motives.
じゃあさ、少し手伝ってくれるかしら？
Eh? Huyumi dragged Masaki into the nursery without bothering to further enlighten him.
まずはその辺に散らばっている毛布を畳んでまとめて。
はあ。
The place was indeed a mess of blankets, that was for sure. Probably been used by the children. While Masaki didn't see why he should be doing any of this, he followed Huyumi's instructions regardless. Fortunately, the work was easy, since these blankets were far smaller than adult-sized ones. However, the task was more difficult when considering the ones soiled by drool or bedwetters were in the majority. Still, he separated them just like Huyumi had requested.
茅原さん。
ああ、うん。じゃあ次はこれを裏の洗い場に持って行ってくれるかしら。
Huyumi handed a pile of clothes to Masaki. He recoiled from the stench.
裏には電気洗濯機があるからその中に入れておいて。
Huyumi took off for another room, leaving only those words behind. Masaki reluctantly looked into the laundry room, doing his best to ignore the reek from the items he carried. Something akin to a metallic white box was sitting inside. It had a bellows hose attached to it, so he figured that was probably the washing machine Huyumi had mentioned. He didn't know how it worked, so he just opened the lid, threw the clothes inside, and left. So how long is it going to be until I get a chance to question her?
まさきくん、この子お願いするわね。
Huyumi returned, suddenly thrust a baby into Masaki's arms. Masaki had no idea what to do with the crying baby. He tried rocking it and raising it up high, but the crying didn't cease. If anything, he only screamed louder, leaving Masaki completely lost.
あらら、やっぱりダメだったみたい。
やっぱりってな。
Masaki handed the baby back to Huyumi.
時坂さんとかはこの子を泣き止ますの上手だったのよ。
自分はあの人とは違いますよ。
そうね。
Huyumi smiled and rocked the baby.
パパはダメでちゅね。あなたのことも泣き止まさせられる。
誰がパパですか？
嫌だった？
別にそういうわけじゃありませんが。
ええ、もうちょっと待ってね。
Huyumi laid the silenced baby in a cradle and tried dandling? 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 What does it mean to dandle? To specifically move a baby or young child up and down in a playful or affectionate way. Who the fuck made that a word? Dandle. I dandled my baby. Like that, I don't, ew.
この子が一番手がかかるのよね。
この子も孤児なんですか？
親代わりの人はいるけれどね。たまにここも手伝ってもらっているけれど。
茅原さんは白百合の園について。
白百合の園。
Amy shook her head after a few
この
seconds.
若葉園の前身となった孤児院らしいんです。
ああ、そんな名前だったかしら。
Amy nodded, though she did entirely look like she knew what she was talking about.
茅原さんがこの若葉園で働き始めたのはいつ？
今年で4年になるかしら。それまでは他の保育所でいろいろとお手伝いをしていたんだけど。
ここが天慶会という宗教団体が運営していることはご存知？
ええ、知っています。天慶会は先日も新聞で報道されていましたね。
あなたも信者なのですか？
教団の方にお世話にはなっていましたが。
Oh, thank God.
あいにくと信仰心は持ち合わせてい
Oh,
ません。
thank God.
そう
Who you
い
mean?
ったものは昔から
Oh,
の慣れ。
thank you. You have no idea how much I need to hear that. Oh, so glad to hear it. Oof.
そうでしたか。
Muskie was relieved to hear that. Boy, you and me both.
でも恩義は感じているの。ここのお仕事をくださったから。
ここができてからということは、やはり白百合の園については何も知らないんですか？
前に個人を運営していたとしか知らないわ。詳しいことだったら典型会の宇津木さんにお聞きした方が。
No, it's still too early to strike at their heart. Muskie believed it was best if Reiji or Toji made the call on that
こ
front.
こに何か当時の資料は残されていたりしませんか？
そういったものを見た覚えはないわね。ここにある書類はすべて若葉園になってからのものよ。
ですよね。じゃあ当時孤児院にいた子供たちのその後なんかは分かりませんよね。
養子に入ったりしてほとんどはバラバラになったみたいよ。
白百合の園はここにあったんですか？
いえ、確か八王子の方です。霞村とか言ったかしら。
詳しい場所は分かりますか？
さすがに住所まではちょっと。少し山の中に入ったところで
Wait,
教会が併設されていたはずです。
a church in the mountains. A church in the mountains. Ain't that the same place where Toko first wound up with fucking Mr. Mamiya? Shinji? Ain't that the spot? Church in the mountains?
霞村ですね。分かりました。
Guess I'll just have to find it myself.
あまり役に立たないことばかりでごめん。
いえ、助かります。
本当はこういったことも外に漏らしてはいけないのかもしれない。
Leave me side.
そんなに典型会に対して恩義があるんですか？
ええ、
それはもう信仰と呼べるものなんじゃないですか？
それは違うわ。私は神様なんて信じてないから。
Based who you mean, I love you. Amy shook her head. Muskie sensed there was a story behind her fervent atheism. He couldn't bring himself to dig deeper. It's getting dark by the time I finish my errands and return to Shinjuku. Wonder to stop somewhere before heading home. You mean Moon World? I think you mean Moon World. Let's go to Moon World. I want to go to Moon World. Start by Moon World. I was on high alert due to the events the previous night. There were ultimately no sketchy individuals to be found, thankfully.
いらっしゃい時坂くん。
Kyoko turned my way when I entered. She appeared somewhat haggard.
大丈夫か？
ええ、心配いらないわよ。
So she claimed, but that false bravado didn't fool me. It was then I noticed Yukiko was seated at the counter. She was shooting Kyoko a concerned look.
コーヒー入れるわね。
Kyoko whirled around, sat 2 stools away from Yukiko in the meantime.
京子さん、どうかなさったんですか？
少し疲れてるみたいなんだよ。
昨日何かなさったんですか？
俺じゃねえ
I hastily denied it.
何こそこそ話してるの？
よ。なんでもないよ。
Kyoko served my
あの
coffee.
後何もなかったか？
ええ、あの人たちも今日は来てないわ。
Yeah, she's in the clear for now. Still, maybe I should look into those punks, even if it does mean more work on my
あ
plate.
いつらのことを教えてくれ。
Kyoko shook her head.
迷惑はかけられないわよ。
そんな遠慮し合うようなこと。
I shut my mouth when I saw Yukiko eyeing us. This wasn't the sort of thing she needed to hear.
私は大丈夫だから。
あ
All I could do was play along. While she may have been fine with it, that didn't mean I was. I knew it would be beyond rash to go knocking down the doors of all the local loan sharks to find those thugs. There was no guarantee I could keep her safe otherwise. We should start doing some digging tonight. I mean, it's not like I've got plans. Hell yeah. Don't you worry, Kyoko, we'll save you. Muskie sat at the desk in Reiji's office, burning the midnight oil. He'd made a little stop to Jinbocho earlier that day. The result of his trip was spread before him, an outdated map of Tokyo. His goal was to track down the White Lily Garden. Towns and villages in the Tama region have been constantly merging in recent years, so I wasn't sure he'd find the name he was looking for on a modern map. Kosmi village is located in the northern part of South Tama, just north of Hachioji. The village is located on the plain surrounded by hills, south of the confluence of the Aki River and Tama River. Osuki studied the map and looked for a building titled White Lily Garden. Ultimately, he ended up finding it almost disappointingly quickly. It was standing all by its lonesome in the mountains. So this is the White Lily Garden. Would it be fastest to take the JNR Itsukaichi line and get off at Higashiakire? No, hold on. Perhaps taking the Chuo line to Hachioji Station and riding a bus over is better? Osuki put away the map, figuring he'd get as close as he could before making the remainder of the trip on foot, seeing as he didn't have much money. He wasn't sure what he'd find at an orphanage that had been closed for years, if anything. However, he knew he had to at least check it out after everything he'd heard. Curious. Yukari regarded my face curiously as I sat in a chair staring out into space.
なんだ？
珍しいですね。兄さんがこんなに早く起きているなんて。
なんとなくな。
I woke up awfully early that morning despite going to bed at the same time as always.
お部屋が寒かったのですか？
まあそれもあるが、コーヒーを入れてくれるか。
すみません。それがあいにくコーヒー豆を切らしてまして。
ああ、頼むよ。
Yukari made for the kitchen. Guess I'll pay Moonworld a visit later. You're goddamn right I will. Not just for coffee beans, but to make sure KYOKO's holding up okay.
京子さんのところへ行かれるのでしたら、いつものを買ってきていただけませんか？
Yukari came back with a teapot and cups.
俺も今それを考えていたところだ。
それではよろしくお願いしますね。
Yukari poured me some tea. Suddenly the phone rang.
いいよ、俺が出る。
I headed for the phone to let Yukari finish her
も
task.
しもし、時坂ですが。
おはようございます。
Her voice sounded tense, almost as if something had her on
おは
edge.
ようございます。何かあったのですか？
God fucking damn it!
何者かに刺されてこちらに搬送されました。
I failed to register words for a moment.
命に別状はありませんから安心してください。ご本人には知らせないでくれと言われたのですが、
Son of a
伝えないわけにはい
bitch!
かないので。
Anako's voice went in one ear and out the other. Little I picked up in my days at least told me that KYOKO was going to be alright.
とにかくご本人は無事ですから。今は
The details started sinking in little by little.
それでも、後でお話を伺いに参りますので。
I turned my head away to avoid Yukari's concerned scrutiny.
わかりました。お待ちしています。
And with that, I feebly hung up. Yukari asked the question I've been dreading.
いや、帰ってきてから話す。だからお前は、授業があるんだろ。
です
俺もうまく説明できない。
わかりました。
Yukari grabbed her bag and headed for the door.
ゆかり、コーヒー豆はまた今度にしてくれ。
はい。
Yukari's eyes widened, but she still left the house despite the urge to press me further, clearly raging within her. Took a deep breath. Knew this wasn't out of the question. So why? No, I couldn't afford to get emotional. I had to keep my cool. It wasn't like KYOKO had been mortally wounded after all. Plus, she was in good hands at the hospital, so there was no need to worry. My job was simply to find the bastard responsible. That was all a detective could do. Those motherfuckers. Sons of bitches. You had to come from my girl KYOKO. One of the ones I really gave a shit about. Hey, you had to go at her, huh? Motherfuckers. Yukari stared out the window of her classroom all by her lonesome on account of having arrived earlier than usual. What in the world was that phone call about? She could wager educated guesses, however none of them led anywhere good. Something must have happened to KYOKO. Rage's last words had hinted as such, and really it was the only possible explanation. For she'd only ever seen Leiji act like that twice before, when his fiancée was murdered 8 years ago, and when Yukari's friend was hit by a car 2 years back. Yukari closed her eyes and clasped her hands together. Normally she wasn't all that religious despite going to a Catholic school. And yet now she offered a prayer. Please, please, God, don't take anything else from Eiichi. He's already lost so much.
あれゆかりっち、今日は早いんだね。
Shut up, I do not need you right now. Kalani stepped into class just then.
おはよう。小羽も早いんですね。
Yukari tried to act as normal as possible so as not to alarm Kahane with the concerns that were gnawing away at her heart.
私はいつもこのくらいだよ。朝なんて家にいてもすることないからね。二度寝とかはしないんですか？一度起きちゃったらしばらく眠くならないのよ。何時間か空けないとね。それでよく授業中に眠ってるんですね。そういうこと。
The room gradually filled up with more classmates while Yukari and Kahane chatted. Yukiko was one of them.
おはようゆきこちゃん。おはよ
Yukiko rubbed the drowsiness out of her eyes as she sat at her desk.
う。ゆきこちゃんは眠そうね。たくさん眠ったはずなんだけど。
Yukiko exhaled a quiet yawn.
お薬をもらったからそれの影響かもしれないわね。でも今まであまり眠れなかったんだからちょうどいいんじゃない？そうかも。
Yukiko flopped onto her desk as if it were her own bed.
そんなによく眠れるものなの？
Some of it sure does.
そう。
Yukari found herself worrying about their mutual friend's behavior. Yukiko remained sprawled in the meantime, not so much as twitching. Just then the bell rang. Yukari and Kohane took their seats. Yukiko didn't even budge an inch until the homeroom teacher arrived. I raced into the hospital the moment I got out of my car. All my efforts to stay calm were falling apart now that I was actually here. I weaved my way past visitors until I found myself right in front of the reception desk.
すみません。沢城さんは
The receptionist's eyes lit up in recognition.
時坂様ですね。奥の応接室で。
I headed straight for the door she'd indicated. No one was inside, so I took a seat and waited for Nanako. My feet started tapping like crazy if I took my mind off them for even a second. That said, not even grabbing my knees could bring them to a complete halt.
お待たせしました。
Fortunately, Nanako's prompt arrival took some of the edge off me.
京子の容体は
落ち着いてください。先ほども言いましたが、命に。
それは分かっています。何が起こったのか
葉月さんはご自分で電話をかけてこられました。
何かあるんですか？
あまり詳細なことはわからないそうです。
分かっている範囲で聞かせてください。
ええ。電話があったのは昨晩の10時頃です。すぐこちらに搬送されて思想の縫合を行いましたが、
どこを刺されたのですか？
脇腹の少し背中寄りの場所です。
Nanako twisted her waist and indicated the
刺
spot.
された時の状況は話していましたか？
それは覚えていないと言ってました。
Something about that doesn't sit right. Shadow of that doubt surfaced in my mind now that I could finally take a breath.
走行を縫合したお医者様がそろそろいらっしゃるはずなので、
誰が縫ったのですか？
外部のお医者様で時坂さんに説明する。
Nanako was interrupted by the sound of the door swinging open.
おはようございます。
Yeah. I was thinking, I'm like, who's the only, who's a doctor that would actually recognize, oh. I realized it right before I hit the button and she showed up.
夏目さんがなんでここにいるんですか？
昨日の夜たまたまこっちに来てたんですわ。ほなしたら急患が運ばれてきましてな。どうも事件性がありそうやからうちが縫うたんですわ。
何か分かりましたか？
Much as I wish it had been literally anyone else, she was my best bet for more info at the moment.
ほとんど何も話してくれへんからね。傷からわかることだけですわ。それにしても。
Natsume suddenly groped Nanako's bosom.
なんですかいきなり。葉月藩やっけ？おっぱい大きいどすな。時坂藩が育てました。
違いますからね。
ちゃいます？てっきりそうかと思ってましたわ。
そろそろ手離してください。
Natsume's hands had twisted Nanako's breast into the shape of, well, something.
ちょい待ってな。今刺されたとこの説明するさかい。
And with that, Natsume rubbed Nanako's side.
あら、感じやすいんですな。あ、せやのってん。この辺。
Not to indicate the spot Nanako had pointed out earlier.
多分下の方からちょい突き上げるようにやったみたいなんですわ。つまり自分では刺すことが難しいとこなんよ。
自称とも疑っていたんですか。
そら誰に刺されたか言わんのやもん。
確かに。
In most cases, I would have suspected that this had all been a one-man show on the victim's part. It was only because I know KYOKO as well as I did that I'd promptly
ほいで
abandoned
な
that
刺したんは
line of reasoning. Something like a teeny tiny knife. Paper thin, about it's like a box cutter.
なんだか曖昧な言い方ですね。
まあ凶器が現場から見つかってへんからうまく言えへんけどな。
薄い刃物って言ったじゃないですか。キリやピックみたいなもので刺されたわけではないんです。
Well, those left very distinct wounds, so it would have been obvious that they were responsible.
ここに葉月藩が着とったシャツの切れ端があります。刺されたとこを切り取ったものですけどな。
Latsme showed me a transparent plastic bag containing said scrap. It was stained red with KYOKO's blood and featured an incision that was about 2 centimeters wide.
わかります？この
そうですね。
It was hard to make out much of the blood. It was clear that the incision wouldn't have been so messy were an ordinary blade responsible.
体の方も同じでしたな。死切層に見えましたが、死相なんでした。切ったんやのうって刺した。
薄い板のようなものですか。
Oh, someone broke one of her plates. Would have been enough to penetrate clothes and skin even without a blade.
だと思います。傷の奥にはちぎれた服の繊維も残ってましたからな。
凶器がナイフではないとすると、そういったものを振り回す連中が犯人ではない。
That's probably ruling out those debt collector punks. Surely they kept daggers on them.
あるいはそう考えることを見越したんか。ほいでも犯人を見とったら意味ないわけですやろしな。
彼女は犯人をかばっていると思いますか。
時作はその質問は飽きまへんね。アンさん含めて身内を疑うことになりますさかいな。
分かってますよ。
うちはてっきり時作藩が地上のもつれでブスッとやったかと思いました
I
け
got
ど。
carried away, shanked her.
なんでそうなるんですか。
わかっとりますせ。時作藩が刺すんは別のものですよろし
God, how I hated I couldn't even deny that.
とまあ冗談はこんくらいにしときまして。
That's when I put away the scrap of cloth.
時作藩に知らせんといて言うてたこともありますさかい。アンさんに知られたくないいう思いが強かったんちゃいますやろか。
それだけであればいいんですが。
ええ、それは構いませんが。
Nanako left the room.
大切なんですわな。
Of course
当
I
たり前でしょう。
I limply slumped against the sofa.
身近な人を誰も失いたくないんですよ。
そうですな。魚住藩は残念なことしましたさかい。
勝手に魚住を殺さないでください。
Yukiko left her classroom after the last bell rang.
待って、時坂さん。
However, Yukiko chased her out into the hallway.
部活へ行くの？
ええ、そのつもりですよ。
じゃあ私も。あ、でも先に行っていてくれますか？
それは構いませんが。
Does she have somewhere else she needs to be? Yukiko strolled away on her own as Yukari pondered that. Something was off about her. Though honestly, Yukari couldn't quite put her finger on what. Yukiko ended up arriving not too long after Yukari.
あら、それは？
Yukari cocked her head when she saw the object Yukiko was carrying.
職員室から借りてきたんです。一度使ってみたくて。
Yukiko set the coffee dripper she'd brought into a cup and produced some ground coffee beans out of her bag.
時坂さんは砂糖入れますか？
ええ、少しだけ。
多分まだ冷めていないと思いますけど。
Yukiko grabbed a tiny kettle and poured hot water onto the beans in the dripper. Shortly thereafter, the mellow aroma of coffee filled the room. It smelled something other than paint overwhelming the place, nearly deluded Yukari into thinking she'd been transported somewhere else entirely.
はい。
Yukiko set the cup before
あ
Yukari.
りがとうございます。
Yukari scooped some sugar out of the bowl Yukiko had given her and poured it into her cup. She then stirred it up with a little with another spoon before sipping it.
どうですか？
Yukiko timidly awaited Yukari's answer.
もう少ししっかりと蒸らして、あとお湯をもう少しゆっくりと注いだ方がいいかもしれませんね。
But as it was now, it was on the weak side.
そう。ありがとう、時坂さん。やっぱり初めてだとうまくいかないものね。
Yukiko smiled awkwardly.
きちんと家の台所でお湯を沸かしてやった方がいいと思いますよ。あとは京子さんに話を聞いてみるか。
I knew that was gonna happen. No, she mentioned coffee. I'm surprised it didn't like trigger right away. Like when she said, "Oh, it felt like Yukari was transported somewhere else." I'm like, "Yeah, like a cafe owned by." Yukari trailed off when she remembered what happened that morning.
どうしたの？
あ、いえ、なんでもないんですが。
Just then, Ayame suddenly entered the art room.
佐藤さん？
こんにちは。茅原先輩、門のところで先輩を探している方がいらっしゃいましたよ。
Is it the cops?
私を？
ええ、ピカピカの黒い車が止まってまして、真っ白な服を着た方だったんですが。
No. Yukiko gasped.
一応その方には先輩はもう帰っているかもしれないと伝えましたが。
Yes.
大丈夫。
Yukiko started packing her things.
あ、時坂さん、申し訳ないのだけれど。
構いませんよ。でもどこか行かれるのですか？
ちょっと。
Yukiko mumbled and picked up her bag.
ごめんなさい。さよなら。
何かあったんでしょうか？
わからないわ。
Still, now Yukari was certain something was off with Yukiko.
佐藤さん、門のところに車が来ていたと言ってましたね。
ええ、目立つからすぐにわかると思いますよ。
Ayamo took half a step back and opened the door as if she'd read Yukari's
あり
mind.
がとう。
Yukari left the art room. However, Yukiko was no longer anywhere to be found. Need to hurry and get outside. Yukari raced around until she finally reached somewhere with a view of the gate. Then she saw Yukiko get into a black car that was far away from the entrance.
茅原さん。
Yukiko couldn't possibly have heard her, of course. It was then that a man in a white robe closed the rear car door. For a moment, Yukari could have sworn that she and Yukiko made eye contact. The car took off and quickly disappeared from Yukari's line of sight before she had time to fully process what she'd seen.
一体。
Ayamo was quick to join Yukari.
さあ、ご家族の方ではないようでしたが。
いいえ、ただ何とも言えない。
そうですか。
Almost looked like Yukiko had wanted to say something to Yukari the moment their eyes met. Though Yukari doubted it was a kidnapping, she still figured it'd be best to tell it Eiji later.
鳥居先輩が。
Ayamo tugged on Yukari's sleeve. Yukari looked the way she was pointing to find Kohane staring in the direction the car had taken
小
off.
羽？
ゆかりっち。
Oh, are you actually going to be of some use? Kohane made her way over to Yukari and Ayamo when she saw them.
何かあったの？
それが貝原さんが誰かに連れられて行ってしまったんです。
じゃあ、やっぱりさっきのは。
何かご存知なのですか？
何も。
However, she kept staring off into the distance despite her claims. Nanako came over to me as I waited in the hallway.
葉月ちゃんが哀れることを承知しました。ですが、何も話したくはないそうです。
話したくはないか。
ええ。時坂さんの方からもできるだけ聞かないであげてください。
わかりました。
All I could do was agree. I didn't want to stress KYOKO further, obviously. Just set her mind at ease as much as possible.
こちらです。
Nanako guided me to a hospital room in the inpatient ward. Oh, KYOKO. KYOKO was lying in bed there.
京子、
Wrenched my heart to see her like that, even knowing she was okay. KYOKO glanced at me for a moment, only to turn away. I just suddenly dragged a chair over and sat by her side. But as I was dying to speak, I had to restrain myself. I would have just interrogated her on what had happened if I opened my big mouth. That or spouted hackneyed platitudes and cliches.
どうして来ちゃったのよ。
KYOKO finally broke the silence.
どうしてって。
I gently ruffled her hair, grateful she'd been the one to cave first.
伝えないでって言ったのに。
まあ確かに どういう経緯で俺のところに連絡が来たのかはわからないけど。
本当にね。
Kyoko brought her arm out of the covers and held my hand.
傷は痛むか。
今は痛み止めが効いているから平気。
そうか。無理はするなよ。
ええ、ごめんなさい。
Kyoko gripped my hand.
謝る必要なん。
だって心配をかけたみたいだから。
お前が気にすることじゃないよ。
でも
葉月ちゃん
What the fuck are you doing here? The door abruptly swung open, followed by the rapid patter of Huyumi's footsteps.
冬美さん、
お店が開いてなかったからお隣さんに聞いてみたら
Suddenly, Huyumi looked at me.
犯人
違います。
That was everyone's first assumption.
そっか、別のもの指してるから早とちりしちゃった。
Artie har har. She announced me would get along like a house on fire.
じゃああいつらがやったの？
Huyumi leaned toward Kyoko until she was right in her face.
そうじゃない。
Kyoko shook her head and shot me a look. Who was them exactly? From what I could tell, it sounded like Huyumi had her own suspicions regarding Kyoko's assailant. However, I couldn't very well ask her in front of Kyoko.
なあ、京子。
何？
Kyoko ducked her head back with a jolt and timidly looked at me.
喉乾いてないか。
Picked up a pitcher by her bed.
うん、大丈夫よ。
Kyoko shook her head. Yeah, it's like that. I guess she can't exactly do much drinking anyway when she's stuck lying down like that.
そうだ、時坂くん。
なんだ。
お店しばらく開けられないから休業しますってお知らせを貼っておいてもらえないかしら。
そのくらい構わないが。
そこに鍵はあるから。
Kyoko pointed to the table by her
わか
bed.
った。
Grabbed the key off it.
葉月ちゃんのお部屋とか漁っちゃダメよ。
しませんよ。
あ、でも着替えとかは。
そういうのはゆかりちゃんに。
まだあいつには何も伝えていないんだ。
そう。まあ、あの子は心配性だものね。
I nodded and headed for the door.
貝原さん、ちょっと。
I beckoned Huyumi over.
私葉月ちゃんの体とか拭いてあげたいんだけど。
そういうのは看護婦さんに任せてください。じゃあ京子。
ええ。
なんで私を？あ、まさか。
多分その想像は違いますからね。
No, whatever it is, no.
まあ確かにボリュームは葉月ちゃんと比べようもないけど。
What is with everyone today?
先ほどちょっと口走りましたよね。
ええ、気づいちゃった？
I am a detective.
彼女が襲われたことに。
はっきりそうだとは言えないけど、もう少し離れましょうか。
We ambled away from Kyoko's room until we finally reached the all but deserted waiting room.
葉月ちゃんがお金を借りているの知って。
Yes. Then we started talking in a low voice when she was confident the coast was clear.
融資を受けているというような話は聞きましたが。
それはわからないけど、その金融会社を紹介したのが私だから、もし暴力を振るっていたとしたら申し訳なくて。
しかしそうだとしたら、犯人について何も喋らないという。
それは借金取りが来ていることを知られたくなかったとか。
Yeah.
でもあなたは知っていたんですよ
And I
ね。
already helped deal with some thugs too. Were those debt collectors behind this? I recall the thugs who trashed Moonworld.
だとしたらあなたに介入されることを嫌ったか。ほら、好きな人のためだったら無茶しそうだし。
Didn't quite know how to respond to that.
どうなの？
Amy leaned in closer to
い
me.
や、それよりも、その金融会社の詳細を教えてくれませんか。
ええ、そうよね。
Amy took a step back and played with her hair as she gathered her thoughts.
昨日正木さんにはお話ししたのですが、うちの若葉園は典型会という宗教団体が運営しています。
This was news to me, but I urged her on after deeming this wasn't the right time to interrupt.
葉月ちゃんに紹介したところも典型会が経営しているところで、まさか無理な取り立てなんてしないと思っていたんですが。
先日店へ来て嫌がらせをしてきた連中はどう見ても信者のようではありませんでした。
That or the blessed congregation was providing for thugs like them.
その会社の名前を教えてくれますか。
ええ、確か。
Amy wrote the name down in a notebook after I passed it to her. Guess Les told you to look into them. Okay, well, there's a very specific reason why you didn't fucking tell me about it, huh? There's definitely a reason why you didn't tell me, the reader, the name. Yeah, here. Don't say it out loud. Write it down on this piece of paper so that the reader can't know what you said. Because, oh, if I heard that, apparently I'd be like, oh, no.